Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here this evening to talk about the results of our nighttime flounder study. Before we get started, I do want to go over just a few quick reminders about how the webinar is going to work this evening. Because this is a webinar, your chat, the microphones and cameras are all disabled. To ask questions during the webinar about what we're talking about, you can use the Q&A feature. It's located on the bottom of your screen in Zoom. It should look like two little chat bubbles. You can click that and type your questions in there at any point during the webinar, but we will be waiting until the end to respond to those questions. You will be receiving an email from Zoom tomorrow with a link to this webinar, or I guess the link is actually to our YouTube channel where you can find the recording of this webinar. And there may also be some other resources in there as well. And I think that's really all I want to cover before we get started. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to our presenter for the evening, Michaela.
All righty. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Michaela Cowan, and I'm from the Coastal Fisheries Policy and Education team. This evening, we're going to be going over the results of the nighttime flounder study conducted through funding acquired through a state wildlife grant. Before I begin, I'd like to thank everyone who helped with planning and field work. It wouldn't be possible without these folks. I'd specifically like to mention my fellow policy and education team members and our ecosystem teams in Matagorda, San Antonio, Aransas, Corpus Christi, and Upper Laguna Madre Bays, as well as the staff at the Periyar Bass Research Station, the Habitat, Trip Ticket, and ERP team. Jumping into the purpose of the study, we identified that the nighttime flounder fishery was not being accounted for during our daytime creel surveys. This arose from public recommendation when we went through flounder public hearing process back in 2020. This data gap and public recommendation led us to further investigate nighttime flounder harvest from December 2022 to October of 2023 and pilot potential data collection methods while doing so. Just to note, the study was not designed to encounter wading anglers or private boat ramp activity, and additionally was not tied to any regulation changes or proposed flounder fishing regulation. We employed multiple data collection methods for this study, including rove surveys, which involve counting empty boat trailers at ramps, and creel surveys, which are those interviews conducted with anglers by Texas Parks and Wildlife staff during various aspects of their trip. We also deployed traffic counters as a potential new metric to estimate activity at boat ramps and provided opportunities for public engagement through outreach events and marketing of the My Texas Hunt Harvest app, which allows anglers to self-report their landings and other trip details. We also provided the opportunity for guides to voluntarily share their guidebooks with us and provide any flounder-related trip information. Our project study area was a little different than what is traditionally used, but generally encompassed the Matagorda and Aransas Bay systems. So we have the Aransas system down here and the Matagorda Bay system over here. These mid-coast bay systems were selected due to several factors, including known floundering activity in these areas, as well as local staff experience and coverage logistics. Given the money we had through the state wildlife grant, we thought these areas would be representative to test these methods and gain insight into the nighttime flounder harvest. Study Area 1 can be seen in the Aransas Bay system, indicated by the site locations detailed as yellow dots. With our study area 2, roughly the Matagorda Bay system with East Matagorda Bay and Espiritu Santo Bay detailed with the red squares. For our rove surveys, we looked at nighttime fishing activity by counting empty trailers at public boat ramps. Ramps were selected based upon accessibility at night, as well as input from local ecosystem staff about where flounder activity was suspected. We use these rove counts to estimate fishing activity, and that can then be compared to other ramps in the bay. This map shows public boat ramps where roves were conducted during our study period. These locations were selected based on suspected flounder activity and access logistics, like I mentioned. This map includes a list of sites where the highest number of empty boat trailers were counted during the study period. Those are, those trailers were counted during the study period. Those can in turn kind of suggest high fishing activity. And these high activity sites are labeled with the blue stars that you see. In Aransas, Con Brown, down here was the most popular. We observed high activity down in Port O'Connor at Froggy's Fishing Center, and Clark's having some of the highest activity. And anecdotally, we observed a lot of folks parking in Port O'Connor and potentially staying in cabins out on the island, but didn't have a way to decipher those trailers from trailers that were coming in and out during the study. We also saw Matagorda Harbor Ramp having high trailer counts across the study. Within each of these locations, highest vehicle counts occurred on the weekend days. To gain insight into flounder landings, we conducted interviews with anglers at public boat ramps. These are our creel surveys that you're likely familiar with. Our creel methods and interview process was very similar to the daytime interviews, except for this study, creel started 30 minutes after sunset and terminated at 2 a.m. We asked the standard questions covering fishing effort, time out on the water, location of catch, what gear did you use, what species were you targeting, the demographics of the anglers as well. If you were with a guide, were you out on the water by yourself? What county of origin, and the fishing success. Did you land that flounder you were targeting or not? Were you targeting flounder or not? This data was collected during these creels to be used in conjunction with the rove data to later estimate total harvest. This is a process that is utilized for other species utilizing our daytime creel data. But conducting these nighttime creels provides us with the opportunity to better understand the nighttime side of the flounder fishery. So we conducted 64 creel surveys for this project, 32 in each study area respectively. Across the project, 58% of our interviews occurred in study area 1, that Aransas Bay system, and 42% of our project interviews occurred in the study area 2, that Matagorda Bay system. We also have these two pie charts here that help us with the area-specific creel survey characteristics. Aransas on the left-hand side had a 3% missed or refused interview rate, where the Matagorda Bay system here on the right-hand side had a 5% missed or refused interview rate. In both study areas, the individual sport fishing interviews were more frequent than guided interviews. For the Aransas system, 58% of our interviews were individual anglers, while in the Matagorda Bay system, 69% of our interviews were individual anglers. And then for our guided, we saw 8% that we encountered in our Matagorda Bay system, and then 23% that we encountered in our Aransas system. Additionally, starting midsummer, I do want to mention that we did notice more empty trailers present in the lots, with nighttime fishing trips likely ending later than our creel interview time period, specifically in the Matagorda Bay system. We talked to locals, and we heard that because the water was so hot, folks were waiting to go out until 9, 10, 11 p.m. and weren't getting back until after 2 a.m., which is when our creel study time ended. This missed fishing activity may influence the creel trends that we did see in Matagorda. Jumping into the study area specifics, first up is study area 1. We saw 124 boating groups in the Aransas Bay system, 29% of which were targeting flounder, with 25% actually landing flounder. There were 20 guided trips targeting flounder that we encountered, and in the Aransas system alone, we encountered 254 flounder during our nighttime creels. The other species caught during the most from our angler interviews included red drum, sheep's head, and black drum. In Matagorda, 90 boating groups were observed, 34% of which were targeting flounder, with 28% actually landing flounder. There were 3 guided trips targeting flounder, with a total of 128 flounder encountered during those Matagorda system creels. Other species encountered in the study area were red drum and black drum. In this map here, we have a breakdown based on the minor bay of where intercepted flounder were caught. So we've highlighted some of the minor bays that had the highest occurrence of origin. On the right-hand side, we can kind of see our scale here with a clear blue background, meaning 0% of our encountered flounder were landed in that area. And then we have these gradual bumps. For our intercepts, the highest minor bay that was attributed to landed flounder came from Matagorda Bay at 17%, followed by 16% from Aransas Bay, 15% from St. Charles, 13% from Mesquite Bay, and 12% from Espiritu Santo. I'm now going to talk about some of the piloted data collection methods from this project, starting off with traffic counters. Traffic counters are those pneumatic tubes you may have seen out on the road that are normally utilized in traffic-related research. Traffic counters were set up at ramps and compared to roves to estimate fishing pressure in this study, with monitoring more than one area, a ramp at once being a possibility for us. In Aransas, there were 77 traffic counter deployments from January to October of 2023, whereas 42 deployments were made in the Matagorda Bay Study Area 2 from December of 2022 to August of 2023. Some advantages of the traffic counters included unmanned data collection, less intrusive metrics than using a camera, and we experienced no theft of study equipment, which is different than what has occurred in previous studies where the agency conducted a similar study but utilized game cams. Those game cams got stolen. We didn't have to experience that this go round, which is great. Despite these benefits, we also encountered quite a few challenges, including standardization, as the surface type and speed of vehicles varied at different ramps. Additionally, there were deployment complications due to not being able to place traffic counters at the end of boat ramps, and also just the shapes and sizes of boat ramps varying, whether there was multiple entrances, exits, how many boat ramps, entrances there were, etc. The standardization of the data and data cleansing is also making it hard to account for some of the anomalies that we're experiencing across the data points that we have, but we are actively working on this. Additionally, we had some equipment failures with these traffic counters, with 3 of the 4 actually stopping working before the end of the study. And we actually think this is due to the heat and humidity of our study system. For outreach and app reporting, public involvement was very important to us, and because of that, outreach was critical. 2 of our general outreach events included the Poteet Strawberry Festival as well as the Earth Day Bay Day, where we had the opportunities for people to practice using the My Texas Hunt and Harvest app. And also there we were able to display our measuring boards used during our Texas Parks and Wildlife Creel surveys, and we utilized a stuffed plushy flounder to kind of show folks how that worked. On the right-hand side, we see our outreach event attendance, with those general events totaling up to 4,506. Although 4,506 people attended these events, and we had the opportunity to share this information, we may have not been able to talk to all of those individuals. Alternatively, we did host several outreach events specific to our study, including an introductory workshop for guides and an introduction and workshop for the public. And that had a combined total of 320 folks in attendance. The graph on the bottom right of the slide is our My Texas Hunt Harvest data, which shows the prevalence of gear type self-reported by anglers in the app. The app received 78 reports during our study period, with most reports occurring during the summertime high use season. Another source of information regarding flounder landings was provided by fishing guides who self-reported their trip logbooks. From public comments during the regulation changes in 2020, guides shared an interest in finding ways to participate providing data. We held a workshop to determine what information they had available and what material we would be interested in using. During the study period, 3 guides actually submitted logbooks to us, 2 of which included the total number of harvested flounder. This chart shows their flounder harvest during the study period from December 2022 to January 2023. This was that overlap of what the guides provided us and then the time period of our study. And from this, what we saw was flounder among the 2 fishing guides that we were able to use. There was a total of 30 fishing trips, 73% of which occurred in the Aransas Bay system, 23 in the Corpus Christi Bay, and 3% in the Espiritu Santo. A total of 87 clients harvested 372 fish between these 2 guides during this time period, which created an average of 4 flounder landed per angler. Overall, some of our take-home messages: Aransas Bay had more observed nighttime activity compared to daytime. as well as higher observed nighttime harvest than Matagorda. Matagorda had less observed nighttime activity compared to daytime, potentially due to the post 2 a.m. activity not captured that I kind of mentioned earlier with the water being hot, folks waiting later to go out, and then more returning post our 2 a.m. close time. Another challenge of the study is that lack of self-reported harvest data, but we wanted to encourage anglers to continue using the My Texas Hunt Harvest app for reporting their fishing activity. There was also difficulty with logistics of placing traffic counters, as well as malfunctioning with many of the traffic counters. The type of traffic counters used would not be a replacement for the Rove data that we typically collect. We are still in the early stages of going through study results, and we have more analysis ahead of us and plan to publish our findings through a scientific article in the future. Again, we wanted to thank everyone who helped us make this study possible. We are interested in hearing everyone's input and any questions y'all may have.
So as a reminder for folks that may have questions for us, go ahead and use that Q&A feature that's at the bottom of your screen in Zoom. If you have anything for us, we'll wait around a few minutes to see what comes in.
Holly, I'll go ahead and take the first question. A person asked if we could provide some details on flounder spawning. So flounder spawn generally, generally once a year, they head out of the bays, so migrate out of the estuaries into the open Gulf. Between October and November, there are environmental triggers that if somebody knew exactly which one, they would be making a lot of, well, not necessarily money, but a lot of fame from those scientific papers. So we believe that it has to do with water temperature change, daylight change, pressure from weather front systems. So flounder migrate out to the Gulf, and then they have big spawning conglomerations. While out there, that spawning can last 2 to 3 months. Flounder, especially the males, can release sperm. They have the conglomerations where they come together and release eggs and sperm that then mix together and are washed into the bays. They can do multiple releases of eggs and sperm during that 2 to 3 month period.
We had another question. Are there studies targeted toward the Galveston Bay area? TPWD had conducted 2 nighttime studies prior to this one in 1991 and 2007. That 1991 paper did cover the entire coast, so there is information about Galveston there. But this current study only targeted the 2 areas discussed, which is that Matagorda plus Espiritu Santo and the Aransas Bay area. Right now, there isn't a study planned for Galveston Bay area, but that's not to rule something out in the future.
I'll answer the next one, Hannah. How do you account for wade and kayak fishermen away from the boat ramps? For this study, we did not. It wasn't designed. We had to, where we could intercept the most anglers, which would be at boat ramps versus walking up and down trying to find people who've waded out. Now, if a kayak fisherman did come in at a boat ramp, they would have been included in the study. We did have a few kayaks come into boat ramps. I don't believe that any of those actually had flounder, that they had landed with them, but the wading we do have in the app reporting. That's where people do indicate how they were doing that, and there were wade bank fishermen that reported in the app.
I can go ahead and answer the next one. A participant asked why this survey wasn't done before the regulation changes of 2020. Those regulations were based on declines we were seeing in population data based on our resource monitoring, which this is the harvest side of the equation, what the fishery is doing. The other one is based on the resource population levels that we see. That was sufficient evidence to merit those changes. I think this study and this information about the nighttime fishery gives us a good complement to that information in terms of how people are using this resource and where our data gaps may be on the harvest side. But again, this study was directly born out of the feedback that we received when we were going through that regulation and public comment process. So just to acknowledge that we do hear what the public says when they do go to those meetings, and we are trying to fill the data gaps that we have within our data.
A question was asked about information on the fish kill that happened in Matagorda during late August, and how that might have affected the study. I do not have the final report. We have a kills and spills team that goes out. You can report any fish kills you see, and they go out and investigate those, take the measurements. There was that fish kill and along the coast, really more so up in Galveston, but out in the Gulf, there was a red tide event towards the end of the summer, and there were especially fish that were washing up on shore. So we can't fully account for how that may have changed the Matagorda data. And again, we're not accounting for the population of the fish, just the fishing activity, but there definitely was a decrease for a short period of time during that when the waters were not as hospitable to anglers.
I can do shoot, I keep clicking on the wrong one. I can do another one. A participant asked if we felt the study went as planned. Yes, we did complete our goals with this survey, or the study, which was to one, get a direct characterization on what the flounder fishery was, the nighttime flounder fishery was during the study period, as well as piloting those two new methods, which is the traffic counters that Michaela discussed and the app reportings. So yes, we did meet both of those goals. I think sometimes with science, you find that things don't work as planned. And I think that's what we found with those traffic counters for those specific goals. But we did collect enough information and do enough surveys to be able to characterize the fishery, which is a main goal. So overall, yes, like I said, not every component goes as planned, but that's still valuable information for us to understand what's going on with this fishery and how we can continue to monitor this fishery in a sustainable way in the future.
A question was asked about the size limit and how this current size limit in Texas for southern flounder is determined. And, they might see differences across the Gulf or with other similar flatfish, such as summer flounder there are summer flounder in the Gulf, but not as much as like you would see on the East Coast. So when we are coming up with a size limit, we're looking at how best it can protect the fisheries. So one thing that, while you may have seen in years the minimum size limit increase gradually, is that we're really looking to protect those spawners, those female spawners, and that they can have at least 1 year making it out to spawn before they would be eligible for any harvest. And so that's what reflects our size limit, is to trying to give those female spawners at least a year out there to spawn before they're susceptible to the size limit.
We received another question. What are your next steps for this project? So as Michaela mentioned, we're going to continue to analyze the data and compare that to our daytime data. We've started to go through that and have some preliminary results there. So we're going to continue to refine those numbers and methods. From there, we're going to submit it for a scientific publication. That means it will go through the peer review process. So we'll have extra checks to make sure that these data and analyses meet the standards of the scientific method. And from there, it will be available. we can certainly continue to share those results and when those papers are published at that time.
A question was asked about the enhancement program that TPWD participates in, and if the focus is going to shift to flounder versus redfish. Right now, we are continuing with all three species, not cutting back on any particular one. And with our flounder, as that is a new species that we have been adding to enhancement, it may seem like, oh, it's not new, we've been around for 10 years, but compared to, you know, our red drum and sea trout, it's new, and we've even gotten new buildings and facilities specific to flounder for that. So we're still going straight ahead with all of our fish, and this year, sometime this year, I think we're going to reach our millionth fish stocked, and I'm sure just wait around to see lots of excitement around that.
And that's billionth
I'm
fish
sorry,
stock.
billion.
Yeah, a couple more zeros.
Yes, a lot more zeros.
I'll answer the next question. What does this data that was collected tell you about the flounder fishery? I alluded to this in the last answer, but we are still going through the analyses. I think it's going to be really interesting to compare that to the daytime data and be able to see what the seasonal trends are regarding this fishery. That being said, we do see increased activity right after the fishery opens in December. That was an interesting result from the study. We've seen that the Aransas system had more harvest activity than the Matagorda Espiritu Santo system, which was interesting as well. Once we go through the modeling process and expand those numbers, we'll be able to make some more quantitative comparisons between those. But for now, those are kind of the most interesting results that we're talking about.
A question was asked about the release of the enhancement program for flounder, and if this has resulted in measurable increase in our flounder population in those bays. That's something that we're not really seeing yet. It will take a few years of that, and then we also don't necessarily have a population model specific to flounder. We have population trends. One way that in the past we looked at the contribution of red hatchery produced red drum to the population was by having those genetic, we knew the parents and we had the fin clips of all the genetic broodstock of the fish, and then subsample the wild, what was caught out in the wild, to look for those particular genetics. So if in the future, likely that we will be assessing how that's contributing to the population as a whole, and that would likely be the manner in which we would do it. So getting kind of that proportionality of the number of stocked fish in that have those particular stock fish genetics. Now, when I say genetics, this is the fish are collected from the wild, our broodstock, so it's not any kind of strange or in particular, just that if you have those parentage, you can search for the lineage of those. But again, that does take several years to really build up in the population before you would expect to see really substantial increases or proportionality.
We had a question, what was the spending budget on this survey? I don't have the exact number. I would have to go back to our proposal to be able to pull that up. But I will say that this was funded through the state wildlife grant, which is money that is federal money that comes through us to look at these species of interest or species of greatest conservation need. Things that we spent that money on were to hire 2 technicians for this project to conduct those surveys. You can see Ellen is pictured there. She's one of our technicians that we hired for this, as well as to pay for fuel costs throughout the survey. And then TPWD did contribute financially in terms of staff time that we provided to do this survey as well. So there is some of our budget in there as well in terms of staff hours, but I don't have an exact number for the study budget off the top of my head. Oh, Lindsay, you're muted.
Got it. Sorry. One of the questions asked was, do we feel that the numbers of flounder that we intercepted are what we predicted for the survey? And we really weren't sure what to predict for the survey because there had been, like I said, there was a 1991 study, there was a 2007 study that really focused more on fishing pressure at ramps and not actually counting and measuring fish in creels. So we weren't exactly sure what to expect. With this, we knew that there was fishing pressure that happened. So we're excited that we got to see flounder in both areas and interact with the fishermen.
All right, I think that looks like that's all the questions that were submitted from y'all.
Yeah, thank you to those of you who joined us here tonight and asked questions of us. We really appreciate y'all's time. And thank you again to those of you who maybe we saw at the boat ramps, to the guides that submitted their logbooks to us, those of you who use the My Texas Hunt Harvest app, and our staff, of course, for assisting with those surveys as well. Just a few quick reminders for anyone who maybe joined a little bit late. You will be getting a follow-up email from Zoom sometime tomorrow with a link to our YouTube channel, which will take you to the recording of this webinar if you want to view it again or share with other folks who might be interested in what we did here. So again, thank you all so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And we will see you all next time. Bye, everyone.